Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Weil, and I am the CEO and owner of National Restaurant Consultants. We welcome you again into our NRC Helpful Moment. Today, we're joined, as always, by Mr. Brian Devine, the president of Top Line Management and Cafe Fuel. And our featured guest today is our none other than Bob Brickles, who is our senior consultant here with National Restaurant Consultants. Bob has a tremendous amount of operations experience, having worked with some huge, big brands across the country. We're very proud and pleased to have Bob on our team. And Bob, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Glad to be here, Richard.
Thank you. So, Bob, we're going to start in on an operations piece as we get ready to reopen our dining rooms or even reopening restaurants. Like you, from your operations perspective, and you were very helpful and influential on helping our white paper that we wrote on operations reopening. Some ideas that you could share with our audience today on some helpful tips on reopening the restaurant and rethinking what it looks like.
Well, I think everybody's, we got to start on a same even footing for no matter what the concept is. So whether you're fast food, fast casual, fine dining, casual dining, whatever type of restaurant you are, let's just imagine that this session really covers all of the different segments that we're talking about. And the fact of the matter is, we're talking about reopening a restaurant in a situation where, for example, because of government legislation or whatever, you have been required to close, and now you're trying to reopen and re-enter into the business. You've probably lost a whole bunch of customers, a whole bunch of loyalty. You're probably want to start over again, and you got to reopen your doors and reinvigorate your staff so that they turn around and give an experience to the customer and to the employee that it's safe for everybody on both sides of the coin. So let's identify something. When we reopen the restaurant, there are two main people that you have to take care of, two audiences. The first audience is your employees. Okay. Now these employees are going to come back to the work. They're going to be leery. They're going to be scared of everything's going on, and you've got to turn around and re-implement, if you will, and reinstall new standards at a much higher level than you ever have before. These employees that come back to work, we're not just talking about personal hygiene. We're talking about messages that say that you cannot come to work if you're sick. We do not want you to come in. We may be doing temperature testing on those employees. Employees may be required to wear face masks. They could have single-use gloves in their hands. Washing, sanitizing, everything has got to be forward for the employees so that they feel safe coming back to work. And in doing so, it also then creates an environment for the customer where you've created a trust factor that they believe that you're going to take care of them in a safe, sanitized environment. Now, those customers, when they come back into this new restaurant that you've just reopened after a while, they're going to be faced with challenges that they don't know how to deal with. Challenges like social distancing. What does that mean? How do you take 6 feet apart from customers so that there's no cross-contamination? You're going to have to reduce the seats potentially in your lobby to allow for that 6-foot spacing. You might have to deal with disposable menus because people are not going to want to pick up menus that have been held by other people and it might be contaminated. You might have to do table presets or freshly delivered utensils that are wrapped to customers. And you have to figure out processes like contactless payment. Like how do you take payments where there is no contact and engagement? So let's understand that we have these two audiences. Now, the next thing that we got to identify is that within our restaurants, there are numerous types of different operations that we have out there, right? You got your fast food restaurant, you got fast casual restaurant, you got casual dining restaurant, you got fine dining restaurant. And each one of those have different modes of service within that environment. Okay, now so let's talk about the fast food player. The fast food player not only has to figure out the front counter situation, they have to figure out the drive-through situation, they have to figure out call ahead and order pickup. Now those are 3 different main modes of service. If you're the casual dining, fast casual player, you got to worry about your front counter, you got to worry about call ahead order pickup areas. You got to worry about third-party delivery systems. You might be engaged with meal kits or bundling things. We don't even know yet whether alcohol to go is still going to be part of the game or not. All of these factors are things that fast casual player's got to deal with. Then the casual dining guy, well, that person out there, you've got to worry about what you're going to do from a hosting standpoint. How are you going to greet the customer? How are you going to arrange your seating and generate new table maps for the seats and where people are spaced accordingly? How are you going to take the order? Is the employee going to greet that customer with a face mask on and gloves coming out to take that order? What about how do you deliver the food? Do you just take it out in your hands? Do you put it on a tray? Do you transfer it? And then, of course, how do you handle payment? And the fine dining even goes even further because you have so many other elements that involved, and the customer is expecting the best of class in all of these environments. They want to know that you are safe, that you are not going to get them sick, and they want to feel that you've created a trust factor that you're going to do the right thing for them. Now, with all of that, that's a big, big call to action. So how do you turn around, reopen this restaurant where you've got to go out and maybe you're going to bring back, 20, 30, 40% of your staff? Who knows? But the chances are you're going to be invigorating a whole bunch of new chemistry within that environment. So what do you have to do? Well, the first thing we want you to try to do is we want you to go through certain steps within the restaurant itself. The first thing you need to do is identify all of the modes of service, depending on your style of restaurant, that you are going to offer. You're going to be an expert in all of those modes of service. And the only way for you to be an expert in all those modes of service is for you, the owner, the director, the manager of the restaurant, to literally walk through every particular element and step along the phase for each mode of service. For example, if it's call ahead order pickup, is it clearly communicated to the customer what it is, where they go, where they park? How do you know that they've arrived? How do you know how to run the food out? Do you run it out with masks on? Do you run it out with gloves on? Have you sealed the bags? How do you take payment? So what I'm suggesting is your first step is to do that for every mode of service, to walk it like a customer. Understand exactly what that customer is going to go through, and you want to make sure that through each one of those activities that the points of contact are safe for the customer so that they know you're doing the right thing. Now, you're going to get a whole bunch of creative ideas here. For example, if you're a fast food restaurant, customers come walking in, you got to allow 6 foot spacing. So how do you space customers up and they know that they're 6 feet apart? Maybe you turn around and you mark your floor. Maybe you put tape on the floor. You identify 6 foot spaces where they are. Maybe you put a sign up on the front door explaining to the customer what their obligation and responsibility is when they come inside. So they come inside the restaurant and they see these cues that tell them where they're supposed to stand and how they're supposed to be there. Now, the employee that's sitting there and greeting that person one at a time, keeping that 6 foot spacing, do they have a mask on? Do they have gloves on? What about your POS situation? Maybe your POS won't operate with gloves. So maybe you've got to use single-use gloves. Take them on and take them off so you can enter the information. But the point is here, folks, is that you've got to walk through every step that the customer is going to go through and ask yourself, what can you do to eliminate any sort of contact or any sort of fear of health? What are some examples of that? Maybe you put up a plexiglass piece of glass that separates between the employee and the customer. Maybe you turn around and you have cash trays where, so if a customer gives you cash, you don't accept the money through cash. You take it, you put it in a cash container. The container then goes into the register. You make the change, you put it back into the cash container, you pass it back to the customer. When you go and you pass the food to them, how many times did an employee handle that food? Or was the food always packaged correctly and all the way through it? And if it was packaged correctly all the way through it, have you minimized contact for once the food is prepared and completed to put inside that container? Then the question is, on top of that, have you got the right container for the food to travel? I mean, at this point in time, let's face it, the eat-in, dine-in experience is going to be lower than what it was before. So we have to be experts in all of the other modes of service that we do. We should be the best in class for packaging so that that food stays hot and we have very, very few moments where we're making contact with it. We've got to think about every step that employee takes in greeting that customer. Now, in this case here, I use fast food. But if I did fast casual, think about the same thing. That customer is going to come walking up, and what's going to greet them? Well, you've got to determine, are they going to have masks? Are they going to have gloves on? What is that social distancing between the employee and the customer? If it's only a 3-foot counter area or 2.5-foot wide counter area, you might have a bit of concern where the customer's got to stand back a little farther, right? Then you've got to turn around and you've got to say, how are you going to move that customer down the line so that you minimize the contact points from the employee with the food, the packaging, and then it's delivered to the customer for them to go. We want to minimize our touch and we want to minimize our contact with it. So let's say that you've done that. Let's say you've identified not only what type of restaurant you are, but you've identified what type of mode of service that you're going to operate, that you've walked through every one of those modes of service, and you've understood precisely what exactly the customer's got to go through. Now, once you know that, you can then start to lay out your communication factors. How are you going to communicate these processes to the customer? What are they going to look like and how are they going to work? The next thing that you've got to do is then turn around and identify all of the incremental steps and changes that you have made to your operation to create this safe environment for the consumer. And what I'm saying here is that you want to take literally your job description and how to do it, and you want to do a gap analysis. You want to turn around and say, this is what we had before. This is what is new. This is the gap of what we have taught and what we haven't taught. And then we want to identify each particular step within that gap so that it's clearly listed as to what it's supposed to do. Now, I'm going to recommend to you, from where I come from, if it's not down in writing, if you don't know where you're going, any place will do. That's no bueno. Okay, the fact of the matter is, I want you to take that job description and I want you to step by step it for the employee. I want you to define every exact step along the way. I want you to define the condition of what it's supposed to look like for that employee. Then, once you've got that defined and it's written down, you need to do that for every employee within the restaurant, not just the cashier, not just the order taker, not just the drive-through person, but also the person in the back of the house who's assembling the food or making the food. We've got to make sure that our habits are there. We've also got to ensure that the clues that we pass on to the consumer are visually there. So the consumer doesn't not only hear you doing the things, they also see you doing the things, and they also give you brownie points because you're communicating to the customer all the things you're doing to keep them safe. That's how you build your trust with your consumer. By building that trust, creates the loyalty. So,
thank you, Bob. That's terrific. It's just a wealth of information and probably could go on for another 2-3 hours just on these topics alone. But
I could. You know me, I can talk forever on this stuff.
No worries. Brian, I'm going to turn to you real quick for a few seconds here on our marketing moment, and we'll go from there. Thanks again, Bob. Stay put. Keep going where.
Yeah. Stay with us, Bob. Thanks so much for all that. So I was going to talk about something else, but because of what Bob just talked about, let me just make this really simple. As you are walking through everything and you are determining how everything goes, film it. Take pictures, take video, get out your phone and film the whole process so that as you get comfortable and as you are able to walk through that easily, you now have something for training and you have something for your marketing, because when you can show people, not tell people, show people what that process is, they feel more comfortable and they're going to create that loyalty with you. So I'm just going to go with that. There's a lot more other cool stuff we can talk about, but I think
actually, Brian, you're right. Tell me, I'll forget. Show me, I'll remember. Let me try, and I will execute.
Perfect.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely
and
a great
video.
way to finish this helpful
Way to
moment
go.
off today. I can't thank you both enough. Thank you, Bob Brickles, our senior consultant from Natural Restaurant Consultants. We're going to have you back for another part, Bob, because your passion and commitment to our industry is unequaled, and that's why we love having you on our team, because you do share that passion of our industry for our clients, but also for the community and for the industry. So thank you, Bob Brickles, for being
Fully
here.
welcome it, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Thanks,
And
Bob.
that's probably it for now. Bye for now, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.